My name is Elena Rodriguez, and this is the story of how silence became my superpower. Growing up, I lived in the basement. Not literally, but close enough. While my younger sister Victoria got the master bedroom upstairs with the bay windows and built-in vanity, I was relegated to what Mom called the cozy nook, a converted storage room next to the furnace that rattled like a dying animal every winter night. The walls were thin, the ceiling low, and there was a persistent smell of dampness that no amount of air freshener could mask. Elena's so practical, Mom would say whenever anyone asked about the arrangement. She doesn't need all that space like Victoria does. Victoria was the artistic one, you see. She needed room for her easels and costumes and the constant parade of friends who treated our house like their personal drama studio. I was just Elena, quiet, responsible Elena who never complained. And I never did complain. Not when I had to give up my part-time job to drive Victoria to her acting classes. Not when my college fund mysteriously shrank because Victoria absolutely had to attend that expensive summer theater program in New York. Not when I graduated valedictorian and the family dinner conversation still somehow centered around Victoria's upcoming audition for the local community theater. I learned early that in the Rodriguez household, love was a limited resource, and Victoria had cornered the market. But I had something Victoria didn't. I had a mind that could see patterns where others saw chaos. While she was memorizing monologues, I was teaching myself to code. While she was at dance class, I was in the library reading about artificial intelligence and machine learning. While she was posting dramatic selfies on Instagram, I was quietly building something that would change everything. My parents never asked what I was working on during those long nights in my basement room. They assumed it was just homework, just Elena being Elena, the responsible one who would figure things out on her own. They had no idea I was designing algorithms that could predict market trends with startling accuracy. The first version of what would become Predictaflow was born on my 18th birthday. Not that anyone remembered it was my birthday. Victoria had a callback that same day, and the house was in chaos. I spent the evening alone, coding by the light of my desk lamp, while upstairs I could hear Victoria practicing her lines and Mom offering endless encouragement. That night, I made a decision. I was done waiting for recognition that would never come. I applied to Stanford without telling anyone. When the acceptance letter arrived with a full academic scholarship, I hid it in my desk drawer for 3 days, imagining how I'd tell them at dinner, picturing their proud faces. But when I finally worked up the courage to share my news, Victoria chose that exact moment to announce she'd been cast as the lead in the community theater's summer production of Chicago. The room erupted in congratulations. Dad popped open a bottle of champagne he'd been saving. Mom started calling relatives. And my acceptance letter sat on the table, forgotten, while everyone celebrated Victoria's triumph. "That's great, honey," Mom said absently when I tried again to share my news. "Stanford, right? That's in California? Well, I hope you've thought about how expensive it'll be." I had thought about it. I'd thought about everything. The scholarship covered tuition, and I'd already found a work-study job in the computer science lab. I'd planned every detail while my family planned Victoria's future. The 4 years at Stanford changed me. Away from the constant eclipse of Victoria's spotlight, I discovered who I could become. I excelled in my classes, made connections with professors who saw my potential, and most importantly, I continued developing Predictaflow. What had started as a simple market prediction tool evolved into something much more sophisticated, an AI system that could analyze vast amounts of financial data and predict market movements with unprecedented accuracy. During my junior year, I pitched Predictaflow to a small venture capital firm in Palo Alto. They invested $50,000 for a 10% stake. By senior year, that 10% was worth millions, and Goldman Sachs was knocking on my door. I didn't tell my family about any of it. Victoria, meanwhile, had moved to Los Angeles after high school to pursue her acting career. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated collection of headshots, casting calls, and inspirational quotes about following your dreams. My parents spoke about her constantly. Her struggles, her small victories, her need for financial support to keep pursuing her passion. "Elena's doing well in school," Mom would mention occasionally when relatives asked about me. She's always been so independent. Independent. That word followed me everywhere. It was code for doesn't need our attention and can handle everything herself. It was the label that justified every moment they chose Victoria over me. But independence, it turned out, was exactly what I needed. After graduation, I moved to San Francisco and threw myself into growing Predictaflow. The Goldman Sachs deal fell through. They wanted too much control, wanted to turn my elegant system into just another trading algorithm. Instead, I found a small group of angel investors who understood my vision. We launched officially in year 2, targeting hedge funds and investment firms who needed more sophisticated predictive modeling. The growth was exponential. What started as a team of 3 became a team of 30. Our client list read like a who's who of financial institutions. Revenue hit 8 figures in year 3. And through it all, I remained largely invisible, the technical founder who preferred to let others handle the public-facing aspects of the business. My family still had no idea what I was really doing. When they asked, I'd say I worked in tech and changed the subject. It was easier than explaining. Easier than watching their eyes glaze over when I mentioned artificial intelligence or predictive analytics. They understood Victoria's world of auditions and callbacks. My world might as well have been another planet. Victoria's career, meanwhile, had stalled. She'd landed a few small roles in indie films and web series, but nothing that paid enough to sustain her lifestyle. My parents regularly sent her money for rent, for headshots, for acting classes that promised to be the key to her breakthrough. They never asked how I was supporting myself in one of the most expensive cities in the country. The irony wasn't lost on me. While they worried about Victoria's financial struggles, I was quietly building an empire. Year 4 brought the acquisition offer. Microsoft wanted Predictaflow for $180 million. The negotiation took months, but by the time I turned 26, I was worth more money than my family could imagine. I bought a penthouse in Soma, invested in startups, and started a foundation focused on getting young women into computer science. And still, I said nothing. The invitation to Victoria's 28th birthday party arrived on thick cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. It was being held at our parents' house, the same house where I'd spent so many years feeling invisible. I almost didn't go. I'd created every excuse over the years to avoid family gatherings, claiming work commitments and deadlines. But something about this invitation felt different. Maybe it was the way Mom had written a personal note at the bottom. It would mean so much to have both my girls there. Both my girls. As if we were equal in her eyes. As if she'd suddenly realized she had 2 daughters worth celebrating. I decided to go. I flew down from San Francisco and checked into a hotel near my childhood neighborhood. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the yard more cramped. Dad had repainted the front door blue, and Mom had added flower boxes to the windows. But underneath the cosmetic changes, it was the same place where I'd learned to make myself small. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Victoria, resplendent in a flowing white dress that made her look like a Greek goddess, was holding court in the living room. She was telling an animated story about a recent audition, her hands gesturing dramatically as friends and family hung on every word. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unnoticed. This was how it had always been. Victoria as the sun, everyone else orbiting around her warmth and light. Elena? Mom spotted me first, rushing over with a smile that seemed genuine. You made it. You look wonderful, honey. Work must be treating you well. I was wearing a simple black dress and pearl earrings I'd bought at Tiffany the week before. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention away from the birthday girl. Thank you, Mom. You look great too. She hugged me quickly, then immediately turned back toward Victoria's circle. Come say hi to your sister. She's been telling everyone about her callback for that Netflix series. I made my way through the crowd, accepting casual hellos from relatives and family friends who recognized me but couldn't quite place how I fit into the family dynamic. Aunt Rosa asked if I was still doing computers. Uncle Miguel wanted to know when I was going to settle down and give my parents grandchildren. The same questions, the same assumptions, as if my life had been frozen in time since high school. Victoria noticed me approaching and paused her story mid-sentence. Elena! Oh my God! You actually came! She threw her arms around me in a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and felt just a little too performative. I can't believe you're here. I was just telling everyone about my callback. They're looking for someone to play a tech entrepreneur. Can you believe it? Maybe you can give me some pointers about how to seem smart and boring. The comment hit like a small slap, disguised as a joke. A few people laughed. I smiled and said nothing. Dinner was served on the back patio, strung with lights that cast everything in a warm, golden glow. I found myself seated at the far end of the table, next to Great Aunt Carmen, who spent most of the meal asking me to speak louder because she couldn't hear. Victoria sat at the head of the table like a queen, basking in the attention and toasts from friends and family. To Victoria, Dad said, raising his wine glass, who never stopped believing in her dreams. To Victoria, Mom echoed, the light of our lives. One by one, people stood to share memories and wishes for Victoria's future. Stories about her high school performances, her courage in moving to LA, her persistence in the face of rejection. It was a beautiful tribute to a beautiful person, and I found myself genuinely happy for her. This was her night, her moment, her family. I just wasn't sure where I fit into any of it. After dinner, as people mingled on the patio with coffee and cake, Victoria cornered me by the dessert table. She'd had several glasses of wine, and her cheeks were flushed with alcohol and attention. So, she said, cutting herself another slice of cake. Still working at that little tech company? Something like that, I replied. She studied me with slightly unfocused eyes. You know, Elena, sometimes I worry about you. You're so isolated, so serious all the time. When's the last time you had fun? When's the last time you did something that mattered? Something that mattered. The words stung more than they should have. I thought about the hundreds of jobs my algorithms had created, the billions in value I'd helped generate for pension funds and endowments, the young women who were studying computer science because of scholarships from my foundation. But standing there in my childhood backyard, surrounded by people who saw me as an afterthought, I felt small again. I should probably head back to my hotel, I said quietly. Victoria's expression shifted, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine concern. Elena, wait, I didn't mean. But then someone called her name from across the patio, something about taking group photos, and the moment was lost. She squeezed my shoulder apologetically and hurried away, drawn back into her orbit of admirers. I found Mom in the kitchen, washing dishes despite my offers to help. Thank you for coming tonight, she said without looking up from the sink. It meant a lot to Victoria to have you here. Of course. She turned to face me, drying her hands on a dish towel. You know, sometimes I worry that we haven't, that you might feel. She struggled to find the words. Victoria's always been so expressive about what she needs. You've always been so independent. I hope you know how proud we are of you. It was the closest thing to recognition I'd ever gotten from her, and it should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like too little, too late. Proud of what? Exactly. They had no idea what I'd accomplished, what I'd built, who I'd become. They were proud of an idea of me, quiet, responsible Elena who took care of herself and never caused trouble. I should go, I said again. This time, Mom didn't argue. She hugged me goodbye and walked me to the front door, where Victoria was posing for photos with her friends under the porch light. Elena's leaving, Victoria called out, interrupting the photo shoot. Come take a picture with us. I shook my head. That's okay. This is your night. Oh, come on! She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the group. One family photo. For Mom. I found myself wedged between Victoria and her college roommate, feeling awkward and out of place as phones came out and flashes went off. Victoria's arm was around my waist, but her attention was on the cameras, making sure her angles were perfect. Okay, now just sisters, someone called out. The crowd thinned, leaving just Victoria and me under the porch light. She pulled me close, our faces pressed together for the camera. We looked nothing alike. She was all golden curls and bright smiles, while I had inherited Dad's dark hair and serious eyes. Night and day, sun and shadow. You know what? Victoria said suddenly, her voice carrying across the yard with the clarity that came from years of projection training. "I have something to say." The conversations around us died down. All eyes turned toward us, cameras still recording. "I just want everyone to know how grateful I am," Victoria continued. "To have such an amazing support system. My parents, who never stop believing in me. My friends, who celebrate every small victory. And my sister." She paused, looking at me with what I thought might be affection. "My sister, who's always been there in the background, being Elena." A few people chuckled. I felt my face burn. "I mean," Victoria went on, emboldened by the attention, "where would I be without someone to keep me grounded? Someone to remind me that not everyone can be the star, right? Someone has to be practical. Someone has to be ordinary." The laughter was louder now. Mom was smiling indulgently. Dad raised his glass in another toast, and Victoria basked in the warmth of an audience that found her charming, even when she was being cruel. "Elena's always been the responsible one," she continued, her voice taking on the tone of a stand-up comedian working the room. "While I was out chasing dreams, she was." "What were you studying again? Computer something?" Anyway, she was being sensible. "And now look at us. I'm about to book my first series regular role, and Elena's still. Well, I'm sure you're doing very important things with those computers." The crowd was eating it up. This was Victoria at her best, magnetic, funny, the center of everything. And I was the straight man in her comedy routine, the boring sister who made her shine brighter by comparison. "Actually," I said quietly, "I should clarify something." Victoria blinked, not expecting me to speak. The crowd leaned in, curious about what quiet Elena might have to say. "I'm not studying computer science anymore," I said. "I graduated from Stanford 4 years ago." "Oh, right," Victoria laughed. "Stanford. Very impressive. And now you're working at some tech company, right? Doing tech things?" "Not exactly." Something in my tone made Victoria's smile falter slightly. She was losing control of the narrative, and she didn't like it. "Well," she said, trying to regain her footing, "whatever you're doing, I'm sure it's very stable. Very Elena. I'm the founder and CEO of Predictiflow," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet yard. "We develop AI-powered financial prediction software. Last month, Microsoft acquired us for $180 million. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's mouth opened and closed without sound. Mom dropped her wine glass, and it shattered on the concrete patio. Victoria tried to form words. "That's not, you're joking, right?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the TechCrunch article that had run the week before. "Microsoft acquires Predictiflow in $180 million deal." There was my photo, the first press photo I'd ever agreed to take, alongside the headline. Victoria stared at the screen, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been embarrassment. Around us, the party guests murmured to each other, processing this unexpected revelation. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom whispered. I looked at her, then at Dad, then at Victoria, who was still staring at my phone as if it might suddenly reveal itself to be an elaborate prank. "Because you never asked," I said simply. The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. Years of casual dismissal, of being labeled practical and independent, as if those were consolation prizes. Years of watching Victoria's every small triumph celebrated while my achievements went unnoticed. Years of being the responsible one, the stable one, the one who didn't need attention or support or recognition. But Victoria's voice was small now, stripped of its earlier confidence. "But I'm the one with the big dreams. I'm the one who's supposed to." She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. She was the one who was supposed to succeed. She was the star, the golden child, the one the family had invested in. I was just Elena, practical, ordinary Elena who would be fine no matter what. "You have a Netflix callback," I said gently. "That's amazing, Victoria. I hope you get it." She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Lost, vulnerable, suddenly unsure of her place in the world. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. It couldn't be easy to discover that your supporting character had been living a completely different story. I think I should go, I said, addressing the group. Thank you for a lovely evening. I started toward my rental car, but Victoria's voice stopped me. Wait. Her tone was sharp now, defensive. Just wait a minute. I turned back. She was standing in the middle of the patio, still in her white dress, but looking somehow diminished, the birthday queen dethroned by an unexpected revelation. You can't just drop that bomb and leave, she said. You can't just upstage me at my own party. I wasn't trying to upstage anyone, I replied. You asked what I was doing and I told you. No, you didn't just tell me. You humiliated me. In front of everyone. Her voice was rising now, carrying the edge of hysteria that had always appeared when things didn't go her way. This is my night, Elena. My birthday. My celebration. And you just had to make it about you, didn't you? The accusation was so absurd, so completely backwards, that I almost laughed. Make it about me? I'd spent the entire evening being a footnote to her story. I'd endured her jokes about my boring life, her dismissive comments about my career, her casual assumption that she was the only Rodriguez sister worth knowing. Victoria, I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? Didn't mean to lie to us for years? Didn't mean to let us worry about your future while you were secretly rich? Didn't mean to let me look like an idiot in front of all my friends? She was spiraling now, the way she used to when we were kids, and something didn't go her way. The difference was that now, instead of sympathetic parents rushing to comfort her, the party guests were watching with the fascination of people witnessing a car crash. You're selfish, she continued, her voice getting louder. You've always been selfish, sitting in your little room, keeping secrets, acting like you're better than the rest of us. Victoria, please calm down, Mom interjected, but she was ignored. No, I won't calm down. Do you know how hard it's been? Do you know what it's like to struggle, to fight for every opportunity, to have people constantly question whether you have what it takes? And the whole time, my sister has been sitting on some tech fortune, watching me beg our parents for rent money? I didn't know you were struggling, I said. Which was true. Victoria's Instagram painted a picture of constant auditions and networking events and trendy restaurant visits. She'd never mentioned financial difficulties. Because you never asked? She shot back, throwing my own words at me. Because you were too busy being mysterious and superior to care about your own family. The irony was breathtaking. After years of being overlooked and dismissed, I was now being accused of not caring enough about the family that had barely acknowledged my existence. You want to know why I didn't tell you? I said, my own voice rising now. Because this is exactly what I was afraid of. Because I knew that somehow, someway, you'd find a way to make my success about your failure. Because I knew that instead of being happy for me, you'd be angry that I didn't make my life smaller to make yours feel bigger. That's not. It is, I interrupted. It's exactly what you're doing right now. At your own birthday party, surrounded by people who love you, celebrating your achievements, and you're angry because for 5 minutes, the attention wasn't entirely on you. Victoria's face flushed red. Around us, the party guests were shifting uncomfortably, some starting to gather their purses and make quiet exits. Get out, Victoria said suddenly. Her voice was quiet but vicious. Get out of my party, get out of this house. If you think you're so much better than us, then just get out. The words hung in the air like a slap. I looked around at the faces surrounding us, some shocked, some embarrassed, some clearly entertained by the family drama. Mom was pale, gripping Dad's arm. Dad was staring at his shoes. And then Mom laughed. It was a nervous, social laugh. The kind women make when they're trying to diffuse tension at a dinner party. But it was laughter nonetheless, directed at the moment when her daughter was throwing her other daughter out of the family home. Girls, she said weakly, let's not. But I was already walking away. Down the driveway, past the cars parked on the street, away from the house, where I'd learned that love was conditional and attention was currency, and some people were born supporting characters in other people's stories. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked steadily to my rental car, got in, and drove back to my hotel. Only when I was safely in my room did I allow myself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. They'd chosen Victoria. Again, even when faced with evidence of my success, their instinct was to protect her feelings rather than celebrate my achievements. Even when she was being cruel and unreasonable, they sided with her over me. But this time, I wasn't devastated. I was free. I opened my laptop and checked my email. My assistant had sent me the final paperwork for the Santa Barbara property I'd been considering. A stunning oceanfront estate that had just come on the market. I'd been hesitant about the $25 million price tag, but sitting in that anonymous hotel room, I realized I didn't need to be hesitant about anything anymore. I typed out a quick response. Accept the offer, full asking price. Cash. I want to close as soon as possible. Then I booked a flight home to San Francisco for the next morning. I was done with Austin. Done with trying to fit into a family that had never really wanted me. Done with making myself small to make others comfortable. The Santa Barbara house was everything the listing had promised and more. Perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, it was all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, with an infinity pool that seemed to spill into the ocean beyond. The master suite alone was larger than my childhood bedroom and the storage room combined. But my favorite room was the smallest one. A little office tucked away behind the kitchen, with built-in bookshelves and a window that looked out over the garden. It reminded me of my old basement room, except this one was filled with light instead of shadows. This one was mine by choice. I worked from that office for the next 2 months, transitioning out of my day-to-day responsibilities at Predictiflow and setting up my new venture capital fund. I wanted to invest in companies founded by overlooked people, immigrants, women, first-generation college students, anyone who'd been told their ideas didn't matter or their dreams were too big. The story of my acquisition had made rounds in the tech press, but I'd managed to keep my personal life out of the coverage. Most articles focused on the technology and the business model, not on the founder's family drama. I preferred it that way. But 3 months after Victoria's birthday party, the story found its way to page 6. It was a small item, buried in the gossip column under a headline that read, "Tech heiress has family drama." Someone had leaked the story of the birthday party confrontation, probably one of Victoria's friends looking to make a quick buck. The article was light on details but heavy on speculation, painting me as the secret millionaire sister who'd been cast out by her jealous family. The story went viral. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded with interview requests. Reporters wanted to know about the Silicon Valley Cinderella, who'd built a fortune in secret. Podcasters wanted to discuss family dynamics and success guilt. Victoria's Instagram comments were full of people asking about her rich sister. I ignored it all, but Victoria didn't. She gave an interview to Access Hollywood, sitting in her LA apartment looking appropriately fragile and misunderstood. She talked about feeling betrayed by my secrecy, about how she was still processing the revelation. She painted herself as the victim of my deception, the loving sister who'd been kept in the dark about my success. "I just wish she'd trusted us enough to share her good news," Victoria said, tears gathering in her eyes. "I would have been so proud of her. We all would have. But instead, she chose to keep us at arm's length, and I can't help wondering if that's my fault somehow." The performance was masterful. She managed to make herself sympathetic, while subtly suggesting that I was cold and secretive. The comments on the interview were split between people who felt sorry for her and people who saw through the manipulation. I didn't respond publicly, but I did start getting calls from family members. Aunt Rosa wanted to know if I needed anything. Uncle Miguel asked if I was planning to visit soon. Cousin Patricia, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, invited me to her wedding. And then Mom called. "Elena," she said when I picked up, "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy." I saw the articles, the interviews. This has all gotten so out of hand. I waited, wondering what she wanted me to say. "Your sister is really struggling with this," Mom continued. "The attention, the comments online, people are saying terrible things about her, about all of us. I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Mom's voice was sharper than usual. "Because it seems like you're enjoying this, finally getting your revenge." "This isn't about revenge, Mom. I didn't leak the story. I didn't give any interviews. I've been trying to stay out of the spotlight. Then why did you tell everyone at the party? Why did you have to humiliate Victoria like that? We were back to this. The idea that my success was somehow an attack on Victoria. That sharing my achievements was an act of aggression rather than a response to years of dismissal. I told the truth when someone asked me a direct question. I said, "I'm not going to apologize for that." No one's asking you to apologize for being successful, Elena. We're asking you to consider your family, to think about how your actions affect the people who love you. The people who love you. The phrase would have meant something a year ago. Now it just sounded hollow. I have to go, Mom. I have a meeting. Elena, wait, please. Can't we work this out? Can't we be a family again? Again. As if we'd ever really been one. I hope Victoria books that Netflix show, I said. I really do. And I hope you'll all be very happy together. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I sat on my terrace watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. My phone was turned off, my laptop closed. For the first time in months, I let myself simply exist in the moment. No emails to answer, no interviews to decline, no family drama to navigate. I thought about the girl I'd been hiding in her basement room, dreaming of a life that felt bigger than the space she'd been given. I thought about the woman I'd become, sitting in a house worth more than my family could imagine, finally free from the need to prove myself to people who'd never really seen me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria had spent years chasing the spotlight, desperate for recognition and validation. I'd spent years avoiding it, building something real in the shadows. And now, when the spotlight finally found me, I discovered I didn't need it anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was a photo, a screenshot of a tweet. The tweet read, "Just saw the Elena Rodriguez story. To all the overlooked siblings out there, your time will come. Build in silence. Let success make the noise." Below the tweet were hundreds of replies. People sharing their own stories of being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. People who'd found the strength to build something meaningful despite being told they weren't worth the investment. I scrolled through the responses, feeling a connection to these strangers that I'd never felt with my own family. These were my people, the ones who'd learned to find validation from within, who discovered that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. 6 months later, Victoria booked a recurring role on a Netflix series. 3 episodes, playing a tech entrepreneur's assistant. The irony was too perfect to be accidental. She sent me a text the day the news broke. "Thought you should know. Maybe you can give me some tips on being a tech mogul." I read it twice, looking for traces of the old Victoria, the cruel humor, the subtle put-downs. But all I found was someone trying to rebuild a bridge she'd burned months earlier. I typed several responses and deleted them all. Finally, I settled on, "Congratulations, I'm proud of you." It was true. Despite everything, I was happy for her success. I understood what it felt like to work towards something for years, to face rejection and doubt and the constant question of whether you were good enough. She'd earned this moment, and I wouldn't diminish it. She never responded to my text, but I saw the interview she gave to Variety about the role. When asked about research she'd done for the part, she mentioned having a sister who worked in tech. "She's taught me that success isn't always about being the loudest person in the room," Victoria said. "Sometimes it's about being the smartest." It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get, and I found I could live with that. These days, I spend my time between Santa Barbara and my foundation's offices in San Francisco. I've invested in 43 companies so far, with a focus on founders who remind me of myself, brilliant people who've been told they're too quiet, too serious, too different to succeed. I never went back to Austin. My parents visit occasionally, awkward weekends where we try to navigate the new reality of our relationship. They're proud of me now, in the way people are proud of distant relatives who turn out to be famous. But the intimacy I once craved, the unconditional love I thought I needed, I've learned to live without it. Some families are born, others are chosen. I've built mine from colleagues who respect my mind, friends who value my friendship, and a community of entrepreneurs who understand what it's like to be underestimated. Victoria and I text occasionally. Birthday wishes, holiday greetings, the distant politeness of people who share DNA but not much else. She's successful now in her own right, booking regular work and building the career she always wanted. I'm happy for her, genuinely, but I'm happier for myself. The girl who lived in the basement became the woman who owns the penthouse. The sister, who was told to be practical, built something impractical and beautiful and entirely her own. The daughter, who was called independent, learned that independence isn't a consolation prize, it's a superpower. And sometimes, late at night when I'm sitting on my terrace listening to the waves, I think about that storage room next to the furnace. The room no one wanted, that became the place where I learned to dream in secret. Some of us are born to be supporting characters in other people's stories. But if you're patient enough, smart enough, and stubborn enough, you can write yourself into the lead role of your own. That's what I did, and the view from here is spectacular.